there are, out of the three challenges which the next government is confronting or is going to confront as soon as it takes office, the first and most important is the economic one. It was, since the summer, it has become evident that domestic reforms were a necessary condition, but not a sufficient condition to get Spain out of the crisis. Spain has been implementing domestic reforms since May 9, 2010, when Zapatero did his U-turn on economic policy and adopted a structural reform package, including pension cut, labor market reform, and severe cuts in the budget. It was believed at the time that these cuts or these measures would suffice to keep the risk premium with Germany at acceptable levels, and that Spain was already on a path of economic recovery and stability. In fact, Spain had a good debt record throughout all the years before the crisis, while it was member of the Monetary Union. Just the year before Lehman collapsed, Spain had a budgetary surplus of 1.9, and its debt to GDP was around 65%, much lower than Germany and other countries in the Eurozone. So Spain had a good record. It went into deficit because of the crisis, because the construction and the real estate bubble collapsed, and therefore it went in with public money to support consumption at a time which the financial market had dried up. So, and before this summer, watching the risk premium from Italy going up, it was very evident that Spain had saved, or people at least thought in Spain that Spain had saved itself from the worst of the crisis, that the contagion in which many thought that there would be a domino effect by which Greece would pull Ireland, Portugal would pull Spain. It was not true, because the crisis was jumping onto Italy and was sparing Spain. The domestic political situation in Italy, of course, was completely different, and Spain looked as a sound political system able to implement reforms. The problem is that as the crisis has spread, no country is anymore safe. This means that the ball is going to be increasingly in the court of Germany and the central bank. And one of the challenges of the next government in the economic realm is to try and convince not only the markets but also Germany and the members of the Eurozone that it is not anymore a problem of the credibility of reforms in the South, but that we're dealing with a systemic problem that has to be solved only through European solutions at the European level. The governments in Greece and Italy have changed. Technocrats are in charge. There is no question of their credibility and resolve to implement reforms. The governments in Portugal and Spain have been changed through electoral processes, and again there is no question of their credibility or commitment to reforms. When technocrats or conservatives, they attempt and they plan to do the things that are asked, and this is not under question. Therefore, there is not long anymore any argument for pitching north against south, or for interpreting the crisis as exclusively originated in the south. What is needed, and this is the deal with Rajoy together with Monti, Papademos, and Victor Gaspar in Portugal have to reach, is a deal in which austerity is exchanged for stimulus or for measures by the central bank which do not suffocate the Spanish economy while the reforms have an impact and while they produce growth and jobs through increases in productivity. If this deal is not achieved, it is very difficult that the Spanish economy, as the others, will be able to sustain itself through the next year with austerity cuts and financing itself at 7%. So there's a very big deal to be reached at. An important package of austerity cuts would be, and structural reforms will be announced as soon as Rajoy becomes Prime Minister on the 20th of December. It could be approximately of 30 billion euro, and then the next part of the deal is to reach an agreement with Germany and the other countries. This is the first challenge the government has to deal with. Well, the second challenge is mostly political. It has to do with the fact that the crisis has in fact led to a core, not anymore necessarily to the famous Franco-German axis. It is now mostly Germany who is leading Europe with the aid or with the help of some institutions like the Central Bank and the European Commission, Olli Rehn and Barroso. So there is a de facto directorate running things in the European Union, which is in fact led by Germany but surrounded by EU institutions and some key countries like France. And from these core countries such as Spain, Italy and others are excluded and they are not participating in full year. As Germany moves on to propose, together with France and other countries, treaty changes, it is very important for countries such as Spain not to be left out of any eventual and future design of the Eurozone. It is very important that we move out of that crisis altogether, that the Union is not broken up into a two-speed Europe within the Eurozone. So far there are two speeds or two groups, the 17 members of the Eurozone and those who are out, but the 17 countries which are members of the Eurozone should stay together and should be able to implement the reforms in the treaties which will lead them to further political union, further economic and fiscal union where necessary. So the second challenge for the Spanish government is not to be left out of any further political and economic integration and to be back at the seat of the table from which, due to the crisis, has been expelled for the last couple of years, with its image severely hampered and damaged by the crisis suffered by Spain. So this would be the second challenge. The third challenge has more to do with foreign policy. Inasmuch as Spain has not been at the core of Europe when it comes to the management of the economic crisis and with the design of the future shape of political integration, it is true that there are a number of challenges out there, especially in North Africa and the Mediterranean, which represent an opportunity but also entail some risks for Spanish foreign policy. Spain is very close to the region. It stands out to benefit a lot from the democracy dividend once the region opens up, democratizes and engages and finds a path of stability and growth. But it also has much to lose if things go wrong, if regimes falter in their reforms, they turn into mild or open forms of authoritarianism, with the implication that that can have in terms of migration, but instability all over the region. So therefore Spain has much to gain from having an active role in the region, but it needs also to commit itself to follow through and to be able to replicate in its foreign policy the decisions which are being adopted by the European institutions. Money, mobility and markets, it's something that has to be done at the European level, but which has to follow through also at the national level with trade concessions which may hurt Spanish producers at some point, and also by liberalizing labor and facilitating immigration and free circulation of people across both sides of the Mediterranean, which can also be politically sensitive. The same in terms of economic aid. An economy which is under severe cash strains will have a lot of problems in sending or helping these economies, but they can do that with the involvement of the private sector because there are a lot of opportunities in these countries. So this is one of the most important challenges in which facing Spain. Other EU members expect Spain to take a leadership role, This has been done in the past. Back in 1995, through the Barcelona process, Spain showed that it could have a progressive policy and an impact on the region with an intelligent policy which combined political, economic and personal incentives as it on the model on which Helsinki process led to changes in Central and Eastern Europe in the past. So there is a major role to be played, but it requires not only domestic commitment but also a strategic alliance between Italy, France and Spain, which to be honest they've not always been working together and pulling and rowing in the same direction. Too often in the past they've been undermining each other, they've been jockeying for the favors of countries, and the result being raised to the bottom in terms of EU standards when it came to democracy, but also economic issues like finance and trade. So it is the moment now for Spain to sit together with France and Italy to put an end to the bad habits and the bad practices of the past and be able to lead the EU to be successful in the region. Spain has the resources. This is not China, this is not far away, it is very close, it's our direct interest, and therefore an active role should be played.